introduce you to a friend. I want to introduce you to someone who's worked on issues that you care about for a very long time. You know his name, but you may not know his story. You may not know much about him or even what his job is here in Washington, D.C. Congressman Steve Scalise. Steve, thanks.
Good to see you.
It's so wonderful to see you. In fact, I just saw you, a couple of days ago because you had a celebration of life. You know what his official title is here? Like a Republican whip. And every time I think about that whip part, I'm like, that's the part that's missing in our society. The scripture that says, take the kid to the whip. Let's straighten them out like this right now. We wish we didn't have cell phones a whole lot and that you guys can just get in that one room and come out smiling like the kid does after he's had his spanking in an agenda that will work for others. So there are, in that case, the family, but that's part of what the whip does, tries to herd the cats here in Washington. But I tell you heard it a couple of days ago when I saw you, to have a celebration of life, that Roe has died. You had amazing people in that room, leaders in the movement for such a long time. And I just want to thank you. You had your son there and we were able to all celebrate together. Thank you for that. It's a new day. It seems that the wind is now.
Energy too, just a positive energy. The people that were there are people, in many cases, that have been fighting for 50 years in this movement in the pro-life community to allow elected leaders, not judges, to be able to make the decision how best to protect life. And we had a great decision by the court. It surely doesn't end things because states are still going to have to make these decisions. Can they go further in protecting life? Here at the federal level, we're having that conversation too. And and the other side's very energized as well. They want to mandate abortion on demand funded by taxpayers, which I think is a crazy extreme position, but that's what's at stake.
It is what's at stake, and thank you for interrupting me to tell us that, because that's an important point, and you are having those debates. I mean, there is a summer of rage they have declared, and you personally know what that could look like, because we're right at that anniversary, the 5th, I believe it is, of the baseball field. You guys are coming together again to say, can we hit a ball together? Can we do the good old-fashioned American sport? But it brings back other types of memories for you as well, that this debate can intensify to the point that people could get hurt, and you got hurt.
Yeah, of course, in the baseball practice, day before the big game 5 years ago, a crazed gunman comes out and his intention was to kill every Republican on that ball field. And, it just shows you in America, there's still some people that, for whatever reason, they think that violence is the way to settle scores, and it's not the answer. You saw a death threat on Justice Kavanaugh recently. Lee Zeldin is out there campaigning to be governor of New York, and a guy comes on stage and tries to attack and kill him. And it shouldn't be what is accepted in politics, but we're seeing an alarming increase in it, and we've got to stand up vocally against it.
We do, and in a calmer fashion, if you will, to tone it down. You are also here January 6th, so we know that tensions can escalate on both sides. But I want to get to the point we were talking on the court's decisions. There is a new wind in the sail to get us back toward the principles of our founding. I'm wondering now, as we're moving into this election cycle, getting closer to November, we're hearing that the Republicans could take power. You guys are having private meetings to discuss what that agenda should look like. You're the whip. You have been being in the same room debating, okay, guys, if they give us the power, what are we going to do? Can you give us a sneak peek into some of the things that you've been talking about?
This is something that gets me excited too, because I love the policy, and frankly, I think people care about the details. They want to know, how are you going to help make my life better? And especially at a time when inflation is so out of control and it's costing families. They're paying more when they go to the grocery store. And you fill up your tank and it might have cost you $70 2 years ago and it's $150 today, if you can even afford to fill it up. And interest rates.
These are the good people in the decent communities that get up and do the right thing. They go to church on Sunday morning, then they go to work on Monday. Yes. So these things are impacting them. And so what are you guys discussing? What is the difference between, well, these problems aren't our fault, they're Russia's fault, they're Ukraine's fault, but we can solve them with more big government? We know that's not the answer. What is it that you guys are talking about in that back room?
Because frankly, it's the spending and the crazy radical policies that have gotten us into this bad situation. And so I think we could probably just win a majority saying we don't agree with what they did, But I also think we've got more of an opportunity to encourage and excite and inspire people by saying, this is how we're going to fix it.
Right.
This is our plan. And so we've been working on this for months and months, getting a lot of our members together in a room, talking through the complicated issues of how to combat inflation and secure the border and lower gas prices and get parents more involved in their kids' education. So we're going to roll this out. We're going to call it the Commitment to America. And
Commitment to America.
Like the contract with America in 94. You know, we've worked with Newt Gingrich and others who have done this in the past to say, let's lay out a vision to show people not only what we don't like about what's happening in Washington, and I think most people are already there, they don't like it either, but how can we fix it? We have a plan. The Democrats don't have a plan to fix it. They created this problem. We're going to show the plan for how to confront all of these challenges. And I think you're going to see a groundswell of support build even stronger because I think people are hungry for good ideas. You know, show us common sense solutions to these problems. And, you know, how can we make our communities safer at a time when crime is out of control? And people, especially in lower income areas, are seeing not only defunding the police and the negative consequences of that, but you got DAs who won't even charge people. You know, somebody can go and beat up somebody in the streets. It can be caught on camera and they arrest the person and they're out hours later without even a dime of bail. I think that's what's driving people nuts right now, is that they're seeing that and they're going, is there an answer to confront it? And we're going to roll out that answer really probably early September when people start focusing on these elections to show people there's a contrast. You know, you can keep going down the road we're going now. You know, people can't even afford to buy their first home right now because interest rates are so high. But is there a better way? And we're going to show that better way with the Commitment to America. And I think a lot of people are going to be excited, not just Republicans. I mean, we're getting excitement from Democrats who don't like the Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi agenda, independents who are really frustrated with where things are going in Washington right now. We can show a better way and then go and pass those bills in the House in January when we win a majority.
Well, you brought up our low-income communities, which of course you know is our focus area at CURE, and how we fix what is broken down. The last administration, there was a whole lot of attention placed there. The Congress, you helped pass the Opportunity Zone initiative inside of the tax bill, which stimulated a little bit of the economy. But as you pointed out, now crime has taken over because of these bad policies of progressives. What Americans need to hear are policies that work for all Americans, but the demagogues have racialized us, if you will. I want you to explore with us a little bit of that racial dynamic, because while we're pointing to Biden being at 30-something% in the general population, he's still at 62% in the black community. So are these some of the discussions that you're also having in that room? I know, and I appreciate that you're working with, especially your Eric, he's working with all of the groups to say, give me ideas, give me input. Let me find out what you guys are thinking about with your constituencies. Ours being mostly the pastors that are working in these most broken zip codes, all 8,700 of these broken zip codes. So how are these policies going to speak to all Americans? We don't want to buy into this multiculturalism and balkanization, but we do, I think, as Republicans, want people to hear, how does this specifically touch the things that matter most to you?
Right, and you start with inflation because that is something that everybody sees every day. You know, every day you go to the grocery store or go fill up your tank, you're paying higher prices for it. And it affects everybody, but it affects lower income people the most.
That's right.
I mean, we all know that because, you know, if somebody's wealthy, they're going to be able to figure out a way around it. If somebody's working paycheck to paycheck, they have to do without certain things. Do you go get your medications? Again, can you even afford to fill up your car to go to your job? That's the kind of That's the kind of stuff that is very real to people. And so as we talk about confronting this, we're going to be going into a lot of different communities too, places we haven't been before. If you look at some of the candidates that are running this cycle on the Republican side, a record number of women, African Americans, Hispanics, that are saying we're fed up with what the Democrat Party has done. They don't care about the problems in our community. We want a better way too. We want to focus on how we solve these problems and help our communities get back on our feet. You know, and you saw this during COVID. I think it opened up a lot of eyes. One, really that there are some people, leaders in government, who want to control your life and tell you what you can and can't do, and other leaders who followed the science and said, we can still let you make your choices in life, be smart, you know what's out there, but you can still do the things that are important to you and your family. And I think you saw a flocking of people who said, I'm leaving these shutdown places and going where freedom is actually embraced. And then you saw it in the schools. And I think this is where the biggest damage was done during COVID. Millions of our kids were shut out of schools when all the science said kids ought to be in schools. And the union bosses said, we don't want to go back to work, we want to keep the school shut down. And a lot of parents, especially in lower income areas, said we don't have a choice.
Right.
We can't send our kids to private schools.
Right.
So we have no choice, and millions of kids didn't get an education.
That's right.
And so we're going to be talking about that this cycle.
That's awesome.
Why don't we let parents be involved in their kids' education, including if a school wants to take your money and not educate your kid, shouldn't you be able to take that money to a school that wants to educate your kid in person?
Yeah.
School choice, giving parents those options for their kids.
Well, many are, and you really have taken the leadership on, at least your state did, because a lot of us remember during Katrina when the schools had to be shut down. Yeah. People got choices, and at that point, Bobby Jindal was the governor, and he said, "Well, now that they're out of those schools, why are we going to force them back?" Because the community didn't want to go back.
And
so we appreciate you
those bills in the state legislature when I was in the state house after Katrina. We transformed the most failed urban education system in the country. City of New Orleans, corruption, they sent school board members to jail. And we cleaned that system up and we gave parents choices. A charter school system where you've got schools competing for the kids. And who won? The kids won. The parents won because they had choices. That's what we need, I think, across the country. I think people are more hungry for that than they've ever been.
Oh, and to that point, I know they got to get you out of here. You guys have such important votes this week, and we really need you to vote no on a whole lot of it.
A lot of
it, but we appreciate that. But I wanted to say, in that example, elections really matter because you had to get rid of your senator at that point to even get that school choice option. So we really appreciate that, and I want to encourage you to keep up the good work. We're going to follow up with other ideas going into the election, but we want to also stay on top of what you're doing with your agenda and keep that pushing out into the public. So thank you so much for giving us some of your time.
It's exciting fall, but thank you for having me.
I know.
Again.
Steve Scalise, my special guest this week on Cure America with Star Parker, and we're going to discuss it a little later with my panel, but before that, I have another guest to sort through the noise of the news to find some truth on this particular issue. What are the Republicans going to do if they get power in November? I'll be right back.